Everyone who's tuning in, when you see this, thank you so much for joining me. My guest today is one of my favorite guitar players of all time, and already just the few moments I've had with her over Zoom, I could tell this is going to be a wonderful conversation. I'm so very, very excited to have you. Thank you for joining the podcast, Antigoni Goni.
The pleasure is all mine. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. So I would love to ask you about a million questions, but why don't we just have a conversation about your most recent project, which is a multimedia project that I just finished last night. Unbelievable. Medio Siglo, which is about a whole bunch of things, but ultimately it kind of is around the orbit of the Romanillos guitars and the legacy. Could you please just talk about
yes,
what that process was like?
So the Medio Siglo and its subtitle is The Art and Sound of Jose Luis Romanillos, actually is about capturing the magic of Romanillo sound, more specifically putting on tape the last 4 guitars that he ever built and never parted from. So the instruments are still in the possession of the Romanillos family. They're still with Marian Romanillos in Gijosa in Spain. They're 4 magnificent instruments that Jose built basically for himself. And they're all carried names that capture the meaning that they had for him. And with those names and the meaning comes also to my mind that they stand for the very 4 most important pillars on which Romanillos shaped his life. So you have Medio Siglo, the guitar that actually gave the name to the project and is the last guitar he ever built, and he built it to celebrate the 50 years of his marriage with Marian. It's a guitar they built together. Marian did few things. She did a painting inside. She helped him. They worked on it together. When the instrument finished, Jose told her, and then he told many others, he told me as well, that that's the most beautiful instrument he's ever made. And that coming from his mouth meant a great deal. Then you have Marian, that's a guitar that is dedicated to his wife, his lifelong companion and partner in everything. They worked on everything together, all the research projects, everything that he departed on, she was right next to him. So that guitar is dedicated to her. Then you have Amistad, which basically means in English friendship. And that was a guitar that he built with his students in one of the workshops in Spain. And with that name captures also the very special relationship that Jose was able to create with his students. That was a relationship of equality, of respect, of exchange, of friendship. It was never the master and the pupil. And then the last instrument is La Rosa, and that was dedicated to his favorite sister that passed very young. And to me, that's all family, love, friendship, marriage, sharing everything. So to those guitars, that was the idea, to capture their voices before they pass to the hands of collectors and they are locked behind a glass without ever anyone being able to actually hear how they really truly sounded like. So, and that project started many years ago, and the idea was that I do a recording on Medio Siglo. That was a common project with Jose. Then the years passed, things happened, he got sick, COVID hit, I had my own trouble, it was really difficult to pull it together. With the time, we just felt that we should really capture the 4 guitars. And it was a project we put together with repertoire that he really would like to hear on those instruments. And then with his passing in the very beginning of implementing everything, the first trips, the first sound checks on the halls and everything, when he passed, we thought we were gonna actually abandon it. And that original idea to present this project as a birthday present for his 90th became a tribute. To me, apart from this very personal tribute to Jose, that also for me, represents my sound, really, because on his guitar, my Boda, the 1989 Boda that I have by him, I created, really, I fine-tuned, I polished, my sound. And with that, apart from that personal tribute, for me is another tribute, is a tribute to the magical voice of the Spanish guitar. The guitar sound, the way that I fell in love with it, with the records of Julian Bream, and the very rich sound with a full of nuances, full of colors, full of everything. I don't know what that was. It's probably me having a lot of other programs together up. So let me just get rid of you here.
Oh no, I didn't
You
notice
didn't
any.
hear anything?
No, I heard a beautiful story and a lot to draw from. No.
Okay. And where are you?
I'm wondering, you're talking about, well, there's a lot of things in there to talk about, but
There's a lot of things to talk about. So to just wrap it up, a tribute to the man, a tribute to his legacy, a tribute to everything he stood for artistically and with his life, and a personal tribute to him and his wife, and a very personal tribute to the sound of Spanish guitar, with all the nuances, the colors, the unique magic that an instrument of such quality can capture and can transmit. So
I think in watching the film, you definitely see, you said an exchange of friendship. And you were talking about it in the context of the guitar La Amistad, where everyone signed the reverse side of the back. And
right.
But I think that concept was visible throughout the entire film, not only in the way that it sounds like he taught, but also in the way that you and these other professionals were coming to, be invited to take part of this. It sounds like an exchange of friendship. And that is, I mean, I'm sure you know just as well as everybody else, there's a lot of elitism in this world, especially in our world.
Right.
So that was very visible to just happen to be playing some of the greatest guitars ever created, but under a really pleasant circumstance. Can you talk about building that kind of atmosphere in your life and music career?
Well, I guess that's the thing, is that with a tribute like that is also a very personal journey, and the people that I have been extremely lucky to be close to, great people, wonderful artists, and not only Jose. I mean, we can also talk about your teacher and who brought us together, which is Richard Provost. I can mention Oscar Giglia, I can mention my teacher, Sharon Isbing, but not only, I can go through a huge list of people that I, as a young upcoming artist and a young woman, I was fortunate to be to meet. The biggest inspiration I got from those people is that the most special you are, the most natural you are, the most real you are, the most human you are. When things come in like elitism and keeping up and down and who's the boss and who is that is gone. And I don't see any greatness in someone that actually feels that in order to keep who he is, has to pass into this kind of elitistic exchanges. And Jose was like that. And he was a great inspiration for that. And in my life, this is something that I've been trying to do myself, whether it is with my colleagues or my students, my ex-students, my current students, the people that I work with in Volterra. So bringing into these projects many generations, actually, because the youngest, the filmmaker, is a student of mine, just graduated, that actually is 23. To John Taylor, that he is one of the biggest, the most important audio engineers, but that's irrelevant because he was a very dear friend of Jose, and the project made us also very close and became a very dear friend of mine. So it is nothing to do about elite and elitism and keeping this kind of umbrella.
Right.
That was not the idea. The idea was a group of people that share the same passion, the same appreciation for Jose and his work. They had a very close contact with him. And for the younger generation that kicked in, they were entranced by the beauty of the instruments. They had the chance to actually see in practice everything that I've been teaching them. And they were extremely excited to be part of it and bring their art and their talent in the whole making. So it is really, truly a product of love and friendship, passion for the guitar and for what it can bring to all of us, and a passion for music. Because at the end of it, it has been the endless work of 5 years on my side, the endless work of 2 years of the whole team. Nobody got paid. Nobody, I mean, we managed to cover our expenses. And
Right.
if we have ever thought of the amount of work that would have been put in it, we maybe we would have never started. But that was never the issue. That was never the issue. Just like one thing at a time. It was just having the final result here, what we wanted to communicate, and it was a straight arrow to that, whatever have happened, because a lot of things happened, a lot of difficult situations, a lot of very sad moments, and then moments
Right.
of great inspiration and beauty. I didn't answer your question. I don't answer questions. I'm incapable of answering questions.
This is how I respond when it's, hey, it's my good machine is at home, my good espresso machine, but right now in the United States it's School Teacher Appreciation Week. So they give us lots of coffee. So you should have seen me before this. I was trying to practice to stay focused. That's wonderful. And one of the things that I was watching that was really cool is like, I think there's a lot of perfect guitars. There's a lot of perfect examples of guitars.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Manuel Barrueco's Rock, that's a perfect guitar. John Williams's Smallmans, those are perfect guitars.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw David Russell for the first time. His Damen is a perfect guitar.
Right.
But it seems like the experience that you had was that you were just entrenched with all of these perfect guitars. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I've played some Smallmans that I don't particularly like. And I've played some, let me rephrase that. It seems that his, Jose Romanillos' standard and his output, maybe in the last part of his life, because I don't know intimately the guitars of the first.
Yes,
Yeah.
throughout. I mean, his guitars, the beginning of Jose was that incredible exchange and work with Julian Bream. So they had both the standard of Spanish sound that they approached differently. They worked and not very well together, and they created together masterpieces. So the recordings, the Spanish recordings of Julian Bream on his Jose Romanillos is just phenomenal. The sound, the nuance, the punch, the brilliance. I mean, it's absolutely spectacular. So Granados, for example, here, Julian Bream's recording of Granados, and you should really check it out. And then
I'm very familiar with that album.
So,
so
it goes back.
What does it feel like to play those guitars that have not been broken in? What does that feel like? Maybe in an emotional, but then also like a practical sense.
The guitars of Jose Romanillos are very particular instruments, and for me are, the ideal of guitar in the sense that they have this amazing capability of clarity through the registers. So you can hear every voice, and every voice, every string has its own character. So makes it completely possible to have a three-dimensional sound in the sense of bringing more orchestral colors, holding the voices through. So you have the very low basses, very deep basses that they come, I say that again and again, but it really feels like that. It's like they're coming out of a cave. And on this, he puts the soprano, the first string is brilliant and clear and travels very fast without being hysterical. So it is like the corona, no? Like a king's, what do you call it? Yes, that.
A crown.
The very top, a crown. And the fact that the guitar in itself is an instrument that has weaknesses that we're all familiar with. And in Jose Romanillos guitars, they're the very weaknesses that make the sound so fabulous, because yes, we are not a loud instrument, but if the clarity is there, the guitar has capabilities of color in its voice, and that if the clarity is there, you can hear everything. And the color is very particular, so you can hear through without combining the registers. If you have a guitar that has a very brilliant, a very beautiful top voice and a very deep basses, then all of a sudden, the very limited range of the instrument by nature expands, because it's all about illusion. Playing the guitar is about illusion. We cannot play legato, it's an illusion of legato. We cannot really create dynamics, but yes, we can in the microcosm that we present.
Right.
So if the registers are clear and they also give the sensation of bigger registers, then you have in there a clarity and the possibility of voicing with color that very, very few guitars can have. You can find it in the Torres, you can find it in Santos Hernandez, you can find in those kind of instruments that every voice is different. You can just play counterpoint and you can hear what every voice is doing, because they're like different instruments in terms of color and nuance. And that I find amazing. And this is what you get in general from a Romanillos. Now, when we went and we played all four instruments, what I also find spectacular is that everyone has its own character to a certain degree. So you had a very, spunky and brilliant and articulate Marian. You had a very sustained and deep, like a cathedral sound on the Medio Siglo. You've got a very playful and articulate Rosa. So every instrument has its own character. And for us, the players, what was like an artistic residency in a sense, the weeks that we worked with the instruments, is that it was a decision. That is a luxury you don't get easily, but to match the piece with the instrument. And so it was just because I did all the solos. There is a lot of Tárrega and Llobet and Majadahonda are solos. So I had to go and understand, so what kind of Rosita by Tárrega do I want? Do I want it to be spunky? Do I want it to be humorous? Do I want it to be articulate? And then I would go on the different guitars and find. So it was an amazing research on sound and interpretation on those guitars in that particular repertoire. That is no wonder why Jose felt very close to, because all those artists, Llobet, Tárrega, Granados, were all in search of beauty and expression. Their output is about that. It's about the beauty of sound and flexibility and beauty of expression. So those guitars and that repertoire just really match like a glove.
And that reminds me of something I saw Elliot Fisk. He said, we will never have the volume of a piano, but they will never have the charm of a guitar.
No, absolutely. I completely agree. I completely
Yeah.
agree with that. Because there is, it's just, as I said, in the weakness of guitars lay its beauty. The lack of your volume is what makes the guitar so intimate and human. It's in my opinion, the voice of the guitar is the voice of a folk singer, not an opera singer that you can hold
Right.
for 1,500 years. No, it's what you do with the short kept sound. And the other weakness is the fact that the sound, you pluck it and it dies. We are a percussive instrument. But what you do from the moment you pluck and after, in that moments, in between the notes, is where the music making of a guitarist should be taking place. Not on the attacks, not on the note, is in between the notes. And this is where everything happens. And this is where an instrument that is capable of nuance, like the Romanillos, like the Torreses, like the Manuel Ramirez, like the Santos Hernandez, these are the guitars that create magic. To have a loud guitar, I don't care, because if I have to play with an orchestra, I'm going to amplify. Play with a cellist, I'm going to enhance. What do I need a loud guitar for? I don't need that. I know how to bring sound out of an instrument. I need a guitar that has the core of the sound is so clean and so pure that can travel and can reach whoever. And the magic is that the human ear can adapt, so I can draw them in. I don't want to throw out my music. I want them to come into my world and experience whatever is happening. So
You think that, and I don't mean this in a controversial way, do you think that young players and young guitar makers nowadays are losing track of that concept?
I do think so, that, yes, I do. And I'm a little bit against the idea of a young guitarist playing an instrument that is so-called loud. Because a young musician, a young guitarist has to be able to create his sound. And has to be, I mean, it is technique to be able to pull out the sound of an instrument. It needs a lot of not knowledge. I mean, you can go ahead and you can describe everything in physics, which I cannot do, but it's all about the touch. Right. It's all about the connection of the player with the instrument. It's all about pressure, angles, a gazillion of things. But if you have an instrument that reacts like that, you know, like a drum, you're not going to go in there to occupy yourself. And youth is fast, so you end up having percussively fast players. And then you throw an andante or a largo. And what do?
They're toast.
A player that has formed his sound, his imagination is developed in the sense that dialogue with an instrument has happened, and so because the guitar will not show you necessarily everything. You have to also imagine it and have an instrument that can respond. If that is not there, then you're missing out. If you have, you know, Manuel Barrueco played the rack, then he changed, or David Russell playing Gilbert, he changed to a Damen. He kept everything. That's okay. But you have a 19-year-old, 16-year-old, 17-year-old that doesn't exactly know how to pull out a guitar, you know, a sound from a guitar. He used to a fastly responsive instrument. Then you put him to play a Torres, a Manuel Ramirez, and says, "My God, there's no sound." Well, you know, sorry, that's not the guitar's problem.
No, I completely agree. You know, I think I
guess I a lot of enemies out there with this podcast, Benjamin. That's it.
No,
but
no.
I feel very strong about that. I mean, I fell in love with the guitar sounds, and not the possibility of the guitar sounding like a piano, not the possibility of the guitar sounding. I never played the electric guitar because to me sounds like a violin. Not really, but I don't care about that. I like the guitar sound, and that's still to the day. That's what I love. So
I agree with you, and I think that I don't think that this is as maybe I presented it in more of a controversial hot take than it is, but the people that I talk to, I think, tend to agree with you. And you didn't say anything that was that cutting. I think your idea is very simple. It's like, you know, if you are a guitar player, if you're any sort of technician, or our artist, you want to be able to understand your tools fully. And if you are given something that is really, I have a guitar that's pretty loud and it does things pretty well. And sometimes I wonder, there's probably skills that I'm missing out on by not playing a guitar that is less loud, but has, different attributes to it that my guitar doesn't. I'm not really saying it in a very clear way, but I think what you're saying is like an artist needs to understand their toolkit and before making a decision on which tool to buy.
Absolutely, but that is a journey that we all depart on, and it is true that these spectacular instruments, not only Jose Romanillo's instruments, but also all the other makers that I mentioned, whether it is Manuel Ramirez or Santos Hernandez or Torres, all these instruments are not really that accessible to young players. And there's where I think that's a crime. I mean, that was the biggest drive. Also, what we discussed with Jose, I said, Jose, we really have to just bring those guitars on the recording studio. We have to capture their voice. I mean, it's a duty. I felt it really as my duty, in the sense that nobody will be able to afford these instruments once they're out in the market. Once the family decides to sell them, they're going to be, I mean, I know a little bit the cost right now because I had to insure them, to pay for the insurance in order to pay, play on them and record on them. So no player can afford this kind of instruments. So not a young player, that's for sure. So for sure, they're going to end up behind a glass. I mean, still to the day, I think it's a crime that Segovia's guitar is behind the glass. I know it was the dying wish of Segovia, or I don't know the story exactly. I should actually know the stories. But in any case, I think it's terrible. It's really terrible. But in any case, so, and that was also the driving force in bringing, Martin and Luca into this project, because I wanted to make the bridge. I wanted to have young players also get this experience. And I think that if any collector out there hears me, I think they should open their doors. The instruments have to be played. What are they for otherwise? What is the point of making books on instruments that we don't ever get to try? How can you describe a sound if you just don't feel it in your skin and on your chest? I mean, there is no way. So there we have an issue there. And I think what a better school for a sound, for a young artist to just, start his journey with a sound. What better than you actually has access to this kind of instruments, which is our history. It's the history of the guitar.
The first time that I saw Oscar play, he played on a Kono, and the guitar was quieter than any guitar I've ever played. But once my ear adjusted, took about 5 minutes, I realized that there was a lot more going on there. And I think maybe it illuminated, I don't know, maybe this is me reading into it, a relationship between a player and their instrument, and an invitation for the audience to watch, rather than the presumption of I'm going to provide sound for my audience.
No.
I don't know. Does that make sense?
No, I understand, of course. I understand completely what you're saying. And it is like that. The voice, the sound that an artist creates and has is his voice. Singers have their voice. We have our guitar sound. That's my voice. And it's not my guitar's voice, it's my voice. The guitar is part of me and I'm part, it's one. When you can feel when a player is the player and the instrument and then the audience, then it's just like 3 layers, 3 degrees of separation. No, it is one. That's what ultimately, in my opinion, should be. And that's something that I try to help my students also understand, is that in the everyone has an individual journey on discovering not only their artistic identity, not only the repertoire that they would like to be playing, not what they would like to be doing, but also, and most importantly, their sound. And it is discovering each one of us has a different sound. It's useless to try to imitate sound. It's useless because the sound production is unique for everyone. I mean, it's also pure mass. Your hands, your body, we all have the same body. We all play more or less the same way, but it's not the same. So it is useless to imitate. It's better if you try to discover your sound, your voice. And there is a lot of thinking into this, because it's one with what you want to communicate, where you want to explore, how do you imagine? What is it in that you have in your head? What would you like to bring out? So it's a little bit, it sounds a little bit more complex maybe, but I think it's a little bit like that.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I have to agree with you. The older I get, the more I realize that, you know, the artistry has to come first. And I think what's going to happen, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think what's going to happen is in the next 5 or 10 years, we're going to see more guitars being produced and purchased that represent a wider color palette, because I think one of the things that's really lovely is that there's an explosion of guitarists now, which is wonderful.
Yeah, which
there's a lot of guitars.
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And I mean, you know, all of it is wonderful. The imagination, the creativity, the you know, craftsmanship, the players and the luthiers work together. Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm not, yes, there's no criticism on that at all. This is absolutely fantastic.
I think that's going to allow for more people to experiment with what they like. And really with projects like the one that you just released, I mean, you know, it's easy to go into that with, and I'm not just sucking up to you, but but it's easy to go into a project like that with an idea of how you want things to be. And it really felt like, it really felt like a bunch of people who had the same passion going and exploring and saying, whatever we find, we're going to put out there. And that's really what it felt like. And that's such an invitation to somebody like me, who I'll never be able to afford one of those guitars. However, that is the inspiration to then maybe play a guitar that I wouldn't normally play. Yeah. And say, well, this isn't a very loud guitar. Like I was thinking about, when I first started, I had a Ruben Flores, which is a student model from a Mexican maker. And there's no doubt that guitar had some really harsh limitations to it. But the color of the basses and the balance, I miss. I miss that. It did not have, there were a lot of dead notes and a lot of notes that didn't work, but there's a balance of that I'm thinking, wow, I really miss that charm.
So there is, I think that to go on with an open mind and hopefully, you know, with this album out there, which is, you know, my idea was not to actually make people go to play traditional guitar. No, that was never actually in my head, but to excite the curiosity. And when in your hands an instrument, the traditional Spanish instrument falls, having listened to this album, having read, having watched the video, to actually see if you can find any of the qualities that are described, to see if you can actually approach with a different manner that instrument. And I think that would be enough. Just exciting the curiosity, that would be absolutely enough.
One of the things that I like to ask people is, you know, why the guitar?
Well, after this long introduction on the latest project, where I actually defined, you know, that the reason is the guitar sound, that's exactly what happened. I fell in love with the sound of the guitar and its humanity, and the fact that I could It was the center of the attention in the parties that my parents would put together on Saturday nights. When I was a kid, the guitar was, without it, there was no party, there was no singing, there was nothing. It just brought people together. And the sound. I remember going to hear friends from elementary school that would play piano and violin concerts, and I just did not understand the reason why anyone would just spend any time on an instrument sounding like that. The violin was too loud and too high. The piano was too ordinary. Everybody played the piano. Cello. That was an instrument I would have probably went for if it was parallel, but
it's an incredible instrument.
yeah, but the guitar, it was that, and there was never a desire to actually play another instrument. I would have liked to play the piano for harmony purposes, no, but that's about it. Not actually to play, to perform, or to express myself with it. So that's it. That's why the guitar. I've been pretty consistent, actually.
Yeah.
With my likes.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Athens, in Greece.
And what was the music? What was the world of music like when you were growing up in Athens?
Well, that's another thing. I came to the guitar not from the classical world, but from the popular, not pop in the way that the American pop exists, but popular. The popular song in Greece is there are songs that the lyrics are poetry, and I grew up in a very particular time, that the dictatorship of the 70s, so all the songs were against the system. So there were basically Mikis Theodorakis songs and Manos Hadzidakis, so very, very meaningful in many levels, whether it's a political protest, whether it's, high poetry put into music. So that was where I was coming from with my parents. And then parallelly was the classical world of the big composers, Mozart and Beethoven, Brahms, Chopin, and Schubert, that my grandfather was a big fan of. And that world was presented to me by him. So it was a marriage of the two. The guitar was very, very present in the popular world, but always the nylon string, never a steel string, never, never that. And at the end, I entered to play the guitar in order to accompany voice, to accompany songs. And I went to the classical world. So it's just a very funny side.
I think that kind of highlights the major divisions, not divisions in a bad way, but the major branches of the guitar tree, because I didn't start playing classical guitar until I was 21, because I spent 10 years playing electric guitar before that.
Exactly. And that's the American reality that I'm very
familiar. Exactly. But you're talking about I feel like you're just talking about the same thing, really, because you're saying I was introduced to the guitar, I knew how it worked, but it wasn't until this influence of, traditional European classical music that you started to do that. What made you decide to go study it at the professional level?
Well, it was very it was very smooth in a sense, because I started, I wanted to play the guitar at the age of 8. I had to wait a couple of years because there was no Suzuki school, so I had to be big enough to hold a normal size. So I started at 10. I was very fast, very talented, what my teacher was saying. Very soon he put me on stage with the class, and it became a thing that was a very big part of my life, something I really enjoyed. Something I was very good at, something that helped me create an identity where I was very precise and I was very proud of. So very, very soon, at 15 or 16, I was already in that idea of trying to do maybe a competition, was the best in the class, all this. And it was the end of high school, actually, that I realized when I stopped the guitar for a year to dedicate myself into math and physics and eventually give the big exams for the university and polytechnic school that I realized that my mother still remembers that I told her that I'm really very unhappy, studying 6 and 7 hours math and physics, and when I play the guitar, when I study on the guitar, time flies, and I'd rather do that.
Yeah.
I'm happier with the instrument. And that was when I said, okay, well, why not? And that was it. Then I met Leo Brouwer in a masterclass. He invited me to play, to consider doing the competition in Havana. That was the first trip. That was it. After that was that. It was clear. I left.
What was it like studying with Sharon?
Well, it's very funny you ask that, because I was asked from Soundboard to write, the GFA. She's entering the Hall of Fame for the GFA this year in New York City, 50 years of GFA, and Sharon will be honored from the GFA. So they asked me to write something on Soundboard, which was a great trip down memory lane. It was great studying with Sharon. It was great. It was what I needed at the time I needed it. And it was, apart from the fact that was the first time that I had a female teacher and a role model. I mean, I remember the first time I met her, I was blown away by how young she looked, and how down to earth and natural. I had built this huge idea of Sharon as being an amazing performer and the career woman, just a high achiever and all that. And she's all that. But when I met her, I was even more astonished by how human and simple and down to earth and direct she was, and she still is. So classes with her was an exchange. It was an exchange of everything, in a sense that I felt that my instincts were recognized, they were nurtured. Was even when she gave comments, she tried to change things, was never in a traumatic manner, was always with a great encouragement and very clear, very informative. I really enjoyed her classes. I really did. She helped me build my self-confidence. She helped me build my precision in timing, the precision in rhythm, just put an order in this amazing creativity I had in colors and dynamics and all that. I was all over the place. So Sharon's very organized mind just really helped me pull everything together. It was really, really great. It was really great. And yeah, I cannot think of anything that I didn't enjoy, actually.
What did you do when you finished studying with her?
Well, that was the year that everything happened. Because that was the 95. Because I all of a sudden I was without anything. I didn't have a card, a green card or a Visa card or anything, didn't have a credit card either. So I did not have that. I had just enough money to be in New York City for 3 months. I didn't have a career, nothing. So I did 2 things. I had the idea of actually starting the pre-college Juilliard division, the pre-college guitar department at Juilliard division. And I discussed it with her, and she said, absolutely, you dead on, just go ahead. You have my support, talk to the dean and talk to the president, and we absolutely should do that. So that was it, that was one. And the other thing was that I said, okay, it's now or never. I closed myself in my apartment for 2 months, and I went to the GFA. I said, you either win this or you're out of here. That's that. There was just no alternatives. And it worked. I mean, maybe I got whatever. I don't know what I got, but I worked my ass off. That's what I did. And that was the year I graduated. And I graduated in June. And that was it. The fall afterwards, I started pre-college and I won the GFA. For me, the GFA made my international career. the combination of the tour that I played in 1 year 65 concerts. They were saying 50, but actually I did 65. I don't know how that happened. Maybe I was because I was based and I would just go. I mean, I was on the road the entire year.
Yeah.
Plus the Naxos prize. That was the first year actually that Naxos gave the CD. So that first CD, I mean, was everywhere, and that opened the doors in all over, from Russia to Japan and Southeast. So it was a great door opening for me, the GFA, in many levels.
What do you think about competitions in general?
I don't like competitions. I don't like.
Same.
I didn't do many. I did very few. I learned an enormous amount of things from each and every one of them. But for me, art is not Olympics. It's just
Yes.
not that. And I don't like competitions. There are certain competitions that still to the day can actually open doors. And the GFA is one of the very, very few ones, maybe even the only one, because it gives a tour, because it gives a taste of how
Right.
the life on the road is. It makes connections. It brings you out there. It gives you the sense of how it is, day after day to be on stage, and whether you like that or you're not, whether you can be a social human being and actually continue in the year after have more calls, because that's what a career is. It's not just 50 concerts, it's what you do with those 50 concerts, whether you are
Exactly
capable of building upon those. So I think that probably the GFA is the only competition out there that gives that in that manner. And but competitions in general, and this trend of actually going to make a career as a competition player, I am completely against. I mean, I can't say it. I can't find the strong enough words to say how completely against I am in this kind of 55 competitions. And yes, we have to live somehow, so we keep competing. I mean, come on, get a life.
I'd have to agree with you. The people that I've interviewed on this show that have won the GFA or have won a lot of competitions say that it is the people that I respect and enjoy listening to say, it teaches you a lot. It's a great door opener, but it is not in and of itself a career. No. And you should not base your career around that. I've never taken part in a competition. I never had a desire to take part in a competition. I'm too old now, and the time that the age range that I was available for, I hadn't developed the skills that I would have needed to do it. And so I figured, what is this, what's the point in stressing out about this when I could just enjoy the exploration of the guitar?
Absolutely. And I truly think that there are so many fabulous ways to have a life, a creative life in music with a guitar as your main instrument. There are so many ways to do that and be happy with a career of many different ways. It's not just a soloist. I think this is just a huge illusion. So yes, you can, getting contacts, do the first, have competitions, just measure your strengths, create a repertoire, build the stamina, make the whatever, all that, yes. But that's not the only career that is out there. It's actually a very, very small percentage. And so that's something that, my studio is probably famous for not, bringing out competition players. But I'd rather, I'm very proud on actually seeing alumni as being creative on all kinds of careers with the guitar.
Right. Yeah.
And not even only chamber music, just arrangements, but all kind of projects that they put together, all kind of yes. It doesn't have to be the way of competitions.
Right.
So I think there is a fine balance in everything in life. You can just go to the extremes, but there is also, yes, you can have the experience, you can take things out of a competition and then move on. The collectionism, I'm not sure I'm really understanding or supporting. So anyway.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. My favorite players are not known for winning competitions. And so if I want to follow in their footsteps, I'm not going to worry too much.
That's right.
Let me ask you one more question before we get to our questionnaire. What do you what do you think about when you're selecting repertoire? And maybe this is, now that I'm thinking about the way that I'm asking this question, I know you in terms of your discography, where you have made large collections, not your live concerts, but your large collections of one or two particular artists, and that takes such a dedication. So I guess the question, I guess just in general, what draws you to repertoire or a composer?
Yeah. So, well, I mean, my discography, I don't have a very huge number of records in my discography. And so you can't really maybe understand from there. But the way that I still to the day choose a repertoire for concerts, it's the same as always. It has to absolutely speak to me. It has to be, I have to be able to see myself being expressed through the music that I choose. One is that, the other is that I have to be challenged. So it has to be a challenge, not necessarily a technical challenge. That's not what keeps me interesting, but creatively and imaginatively, it has to make sense. And it has to represent what I stand for, what I believe in, what I think guitar is about for me. It's a very personal thing. And of course, my last project, the Medio Siglo, and my CD before, Hymn to the Muse, are probably the most representative of how I go about building a concert repertoire, or how I build projects. I go more about projects, what I can see myself immersing in and working on for a long time, because I like working on my music for a long time. It's not that I'm not fast. Yes, I guess I'm not that fast, but I have discovered that the more I work, the more layers I discover, the more it becomes part of me, the more it is organic, the more it carries my voice and my signature on it, and it is very personal. And it ends up being
that's very relatable. I was thinking, I'm working right now with a composer from Argentina who writes these little folk pieces. They're really cool, and they're very not classical guitar, but it works with the fingernails and the nylons. It's really cool. And I was thinking, because I'm almost done with this project, and I'm thinking, oh man, I thought I could learn repertoire faster than this. But I realized I don't really get faster at learning repertoire. I think I just have a deeper understanding of it now, because now I'm thinking about things that I wasn't thinking about 10 years ago. So thank you for justifying that.
Of course.
I'm going to hit you with the lone guitarist 5-question questionnaire. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
We're going to try to not make too many enemies.
No. All right.
Question number 1. What is the best gig you've ever had?
Oh dear. The best gig. Well, everyone is particular and unique, and there are very few those that I didn't enjoy. But I have to say, I have to say one. Okay, well, from artistically, it was a small concert in Verona when I visited this collectionist, instrument collector in Verona, and I had my Romanillos with me. And after spending in his collection 2 hours, he was happy enough that I went on stage with 4 guitars. So a Torres, a Manuel Ramirez, a Hauser, and my Romanillos. So I had, in an hour before the concert, understand which piece will go with what guitar, and I just changed guitars. That was fantastic. Artistically, it was spectacular. And the other one, that was a personal thing, a great achievement for me, was playing with an orchestra in the open amphitheater underneath Acropolis. So walking on that stage, seeing Acropolis across.
Oh
in the
my gosh.
festival, for me, I said, now I can retire and I'm fine. In the sense that was a
Wow.
dream. As a kid, I would be in the audience and just think, it must be so amazing working on stage and look at Acropolis. Well, so
Wow.
there, that's what you get with me. You ask me a question, you don't
Yeah.
get me. So,
Nope, that's exactly right. And now we go to the other side. What is the worst gig you've played?
oh dear. That was the worst gig. But there I have to clarify. I remember the gig I played on my way to record the Barrios album for Naxos. And it was an hour plus of repertoire, all Barrios. And I said, I'm going to play this repertoire on stage. It was a nightmare. The gig was great. The concert was fabulous. The organizer, the presenter, I had a nightmare because it is goddamn difficult to play 70 minutes of Barrios music.
Yeah.
My left hand was, and is big, dying. I mean, I went off the half. I did not want to go back on. It's like, good Lord, can I play Romanza? Recuerdos de la Alhambra, something. That was, I remember this as a really tough one.
I'm sure it was a great show. And that's interesting too, because not a lot of people go up and do full sets like that. Really?
No, that was, I just did it so that I can go and record with Norbert. But I mean, I learned my lesson.
Yeah. Question number 3. What is the best advice you received and who gave it to you?
Oh, Jesus Christ. I don't know. Actually. Nothing comes to mind right now. I've received so many great advices. And oh boy.
Well, then what's a piece of advice that you would give them?
That I would have given.
That you would give today, a piece of advice. Maybe an amalgamation of all of the advices you've gotten.
Is to be yourself. Yourself at any moment in your life. We're many different yourselves. Throughout our life, we are different. But on every moment, to be 100% entirely you. No compromises, no hidings, just out. Have the strength to be just naked in front of your audience, in a sense. Not hold back, go all the way.
That's wonderful.
I really have to think about that now. I have to mail it to you because it's just terrible.
No, that's not, because what you're saying is so simple. And if it wasn't so important, then people wouldn't say it.
Yeah.
A lot of people say be yourself, just in general, not even on the in terms of the podcast, but a lot of people just say be yourself. And if it wasn't important,
no.
Then people wouldn't say it.
To be yourself, you have to also understand who is yourself.
Right. Yes. Question number 4. What is your favorite non-music, non-guitar thing to do?
My favorite, windsurfing. That I don't get to do enough. But I love it. Whenever I do it, I absolutely love it.
Do you do that where you are now in Brussels?
No, that's the things that I can't. So I have to be in Greece to do windsurfing. I'm not even a professional, but that's where I actually lie. I love the sea and I love, I love it. That's one of my absolutely, best things. But one of the things that I love and I do a lot is actually Friday night movies with my girls and my husband. So that's a Friday night movie. Family.
What was the last movie you saw?
Yes, we saw, what was that? Nikita.
Oh, that's an older movie.
That's an old one. Yeah. We saw
I know that.
Leon and Nikita, the same director. I don't remember the name, but we loved it. That was quite of a dark twist.
Yeah, she was on death row.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know this. I know this. That's wonderful. Question number 5. What's next? What are you up to?
Next is the GFA. So we are presenting Medio Siglo at the GFA, and for me, it's very special because New York City was my home for 15 years, and presenting also GFAs in New York, that's very special for me. Sharon gets honored in that festival. That's very special. I get to bring my 2 old students and part of the Volterra Project trio with me on stage this time. And that is very special. I get to see old friends and old students. So that's going to be really something. So that's the next thing, both professionally and personally. There is, another gig before that's very important as well in Barcelona, honoring again, Jose Romanillos. But the GFA in New York, I really look forward to. I have to start thinking emotionally so I can go on stage actually and not break down from all the emotions that will be flying in me. But I really look forward to that.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Before I stop the recording button, do you have anything to say to the young guitarists out there that are watching?
To follow their dream and not give up. Never give up.
That's beautiful.